guys, thanks very much for joining me today as I talk about my winter reads. I chose originally more books that I had planned to read, very cold, snow, Christmas, wintry type of vibe to them. However, one of the books that I will get to in just a second, I loved it so much. And it's the first book of a trilogy, so I had to take off some of the books I originally was planning on reading so I could finish the series, and I'm so glad I did because it is a 5-star series, and I'm so excited to talk about it because I could go on for like hours and hours. The emotions that this series, okay. Before we get into that, because I will lose control and I will go on and on like a broken faucet about that, let's go to the other 3 books that I read. So I read 6 books in total. What should we start with? Let's go with the one that I liked least, unfortunately. I think I gave this one 2 stars. I felt kind of bad doing that, but I just really didn't like it. This was one of those books where once I got like halfway, I'm like, please hurry up and end type of thing, which sounds really harsh, but I'll get into why. That's The Murder of Mr. Wickham by Claudia Gray. For those of you who've read Jane Austen, and even those of you who haven't, you probably recognize the name Mr. Wickham. He is one of the antagonists in her novel Pride and Prejudice. Now, Jane Austen wrote several books, and there are several romantic partners, and they're all, not all of them, but the main ones are gathered together for some reason in this book. You don't have to have read all of Jane Austen's novels, but it definitely helps because I think I've read 3 of her books, and there is one couple in here that I did not recognize. I had no idea who they were. Basically, this novel, it starts with a house party. Now, house party here isn't how we might think of one. People, most of them are pretty wealthy, I guess. They've gathered in one of their friends' like local mansions, and they are gonna stay there for weeks, possibly months, and they just kind of eat and sleep and socialize and hunt and knit, and I guess that was a common thing back then. I had no idea, so that was cool. One night, Mr. Wickham arrives. A lot of people at this house party do not like him and have a really bad history with him, and the next morning they discover his body and he has been murdered, and the rest of the book is trying to determine, okay, who killed Mr. Wickham. Now, if you read Jane Austen and you loved her writing and you imagine that at the end of her books, these couples that have kind of passed through all these social barriers and they're finally together, they're finally married, and you wish them kind of a happily ever after. If that is you, think again, because all the couples are here and they're all miserable and no one is happy, and it's just this like schlag bog. I don't know if that's a word. Everyone's bogged down with these negative emotions, and it's all this drama, and some of it is like legitimate, like there was a death of a child and stuff, but some of it is just, you're not communicating, and it's an entire relationship where if you just said 10 words to the other person and communicated how you were feeling, then it's going to solve all your problems. And those type of relationship issues just really frustrate me because they can be solved so easily and so quickly. We have all the characters of the Jane Austen novel, but the kind of 2 main characters are, I think, Jonathan Darcy and what's the girl's name? Juliet, I think her name is. She's the daughter of someone, I don't remember. And for some odd reason that is never fully explored, they just feel really compelled to solve this mystery, even though the murderer could very well be their parents or someone that they really love or someone that they really care about or a relative. But for some reason, they're like, we're gonna solve this mystery and the truth must prevail, which, okay, fine. But they set out to solve this mystery, and the clues that they solve are just they don't do anything. They're definitely like no Sherlock Holmes. It's the servants found something strange and they bring it to them, and oh, they found a clue. They're one step closer to solving the mystery. Or they see a splatter of blood and oh, it's like they found a clue, but they don't do anything. It's just kind of, oh, I wander into a room and I look around and I see in something, oh, that smear of blood might be suspicious. That's kind of what it feels like. And that, as I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, you are being really hard on this book. I don't mean to. I didn't give it 1 star. I gave it 2. So it did have some redeeming factors. It just really did not work for me. The pace was really odd and really slow. For a murder mystery, there was no mystery. The murder happens right away. There are a lot of people who wanted this guy dead, so the author does a good job of potentially placing blame on a lot of different people, but no one really cares enough. Like, I don't care really who killed him in the end. The writing as well, it seemed like it tried to copy Jane Austen's writing, which, if you've read any of her novels, it takes a little bit of time to get into it, but once you do, there's this really unique quality to it where it just kind of starts to flow and you notice intricacies like of the language and it becomes kind of charming almost. This didn't have that. It just seemed like it was trying to copy her style of writing, but there was no social commentary behind it. There was no like heart behind it. It just fell flat for me. I do apologize if you really like this book and I just like bashed it. I think Claudia Gray, didn't I write and read are different, have different meanings. I don't know why I use them so interchangeably. I feel like I read a different one of her novels and did enjoy it. Oh, she's read a lot. She's written a lot. Oh my gosh, what is my problem? Oh, she's written a lot of Star Wars novels. My opinion of her is automatically higher. She's a Star Wars fan. This was just a misstep for me personally. Okay, let's move on. Next, this is the one, I actually just finished this today, and that is Small Things Like This. This book, I think I gave 3 stars. This won the Orwell Prize. It was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. And those facts just kind of confused me more than anything else. Because again, it wasn't a bad book. The writing was different. It wasn't really different. The writing was good though. It's about a man whose name is, what was his name again? I just read it today. Bill Furlow. Bill Furlow lives in a small Irish village, and this takes place, I think, in the 1980s. The village is pretty poor. There are a lot of people who are struggling. Bill has a family, he's got a wife, he's got 5 daughters, he sells coal to people, so he is doing okay in life. He did have a rough start in life. He doesn't know who his father was. His mother was kind of saved by a rich widow and was given a job and was able to give birth to him there, and he was able to grow up there, but he grew up with the stigma of never knowing who his father was. So this takes place like a week or 2 before Christmas, and it leads right up to Christmas Eve, I think it is. He's going around the town, he's selling his coal. There's a local convent, and he goes there to deliver some coal and finds some sketchy stuff. I don't want to go into too much detail because it is really short, but he finds some sketchy stuff going on, but the church is pretty powerful. Most of the people in the area are religious and do go to the church and attend it and send their kids there. So initially it's just kind of, do I push this issue where I feel like I know something wrong is happening, or do I turn a blind eye and say, well, it's not really my problem. I don't need to get into something that I know will put me in a bad situation. And it's just him kind of struggling with that for a little bit. it ends really suddenly. I was actually listening to this partly, the ending as an audiobook, and it ended, and I thought for a second it must have like skipped a few chapters because it just stopped really suddenly. And it was good for a short story. Like, it gave me a very clear idea of this small town. Ending is hopeful and sweet, and it does have like a brief emotional impact on you. But I guess just because I saw those 2 awards that it won and then it was nominated for, I was expecting something a little bit more. So it wasn't bad. I'm glad I read it, but for me, it wasn't anything mind-blowing either. And then the third book, Where'd You Go, Bernadette? I have heard about this book for a long time. I had no idea what it was about. I just knew it was kind of some modern fiction about like a family falling apart. The thing that's really different about this book is probably the format that it's written in. It's formed of letters, emails, interviews, police reports. It doesn't look like it because it's just words on a page, but lots of different POVs. Basically, initially, this is about rich people and their nonsense problems. The main character, Bernadette, she is a wife and a mother, and her daughter is in, I think, like middle school age. She's very smart, very gifted. She's attending this like gifted school. And Bernadette herself is currently, I don't think she's currently working, but she used to be an architect, and she was really, really well known. She was doing really big things, really different things, really unique houses. However, she is one of those people where, what's that quote where it's like something about like the worst people are the creative ones that aren't expelling that creativity, and it just like builds up inside them and turns them bitter and mean. She's not bitter and mean exactly, but she is super critical of everything and everyone about her. She's one of those people, not exactly a Karen, but she just, like, no one around her can be passionate about anything without her like ripping them down. It kind of takes the mentality of the person in the relationship that shows that they care the least has the most power. That's kind of her mentality. And she's judgmental about other people being judgmental. The constant mocking and complaining just got really tiring really fast. And I don't think we're supposed to think this of her character. Like, I think we're supposed to connect with her and feel for her and think, oh, she's just like this quirky, really different person. But she did not hit me that way. Basically what this story is about is the daughter, whose name I can't remember, she gets really good grades, and the parents made a deal that if you get straight A's, we will take you on a trip to Antarctica. So Bernadette is most of the time housebound. She doesn't really like going out, doesn't like to be in public around people very much. And one day she disappears as they're about to go on this trip, and they're not sure what happened to her. Did she die? Did she run away? And it's the daughter trying to track what happened to her mother. I was really curious what other people thought about this book because some of it really worked for me. Like, the format, surprisingly enough, kept me really interested, and the writing was pretty good. And enough was happening to keep me motivated to continue reading it, but then other things that I mentioned before would just kind of suck the enjoyment out of it for me. But I was curious if that was just like a me issue or if other people felt the same, so I did go on Goodreads. And one of the most common complaints that people said was the book was like too quirky for the deep subject matter it dealt with, like about depression and anxiety. Just like it didn't mesh with like the wackiness of some of the circumstances, which I did not at all have an issue with. I actually really like that the book incorporated some of those darker themes without it completely overwhelming everything. It touched on the subject, but it didn't drown the book in them. And for me, that actually worked really well. It's a different book. I can see why it would be polarizing. For me, I just got really annoyed with some of the characters, but it wasn't an annoyance I think I was supposed to feel, which just kind of made me wonder, like, am I being out of touch? Or I don't know. It was very iffy. I think this was a 3-star. Now it's time to talk about the last 3 books that I read, the trilogy, just the Chef's Kiss, 5-star. All 3 books were 5 stars. Just, I have no complaints. Just, when I start to like, blah, 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 and then I can't do words, that's how you know, like, the book was so good, when I just can't find the words to describe how much I loved it. And that is the Beartown trilogy. So we have, the first book is Beartown, the second book is Us Against You, and then the third book is The Winners. Fredrik Backman, you have really outdone yourself. So I did read a Fredrik Backman book last year, 2 years ago. I read My Grandmother Told Me to Tell You She's Sorry. Loved it. I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars. It had all the feels. Really wanted to read more of his stuff, but I don't know why I just kept putting it off. So glad that I finally read it. This is the one where I had other wintry books I had planned to read. I only planned to read the first one, but I got done with the first one. Not even got done. I got a few chapters in and I'm like, no, this isn't gonna work. I'm gonna have to like rearrange some stuff. So I ended up canceling some of the other books I was reading so I could finish this series. It's just, it's so good. Okay, let's try and be calm. Let's try and discuss this book. This takes place in a town called Beartown. The author never explicitly says it's in Sweden, but I think he's from Sweden. So I'm guessing it's set in Sweden. But Beartown is a forest. It's a town in the middle of the forest, in the middle of the woods. It's a very rough, cold town where the factories are closing up, the businesses are moving away, times are really tough. And the only thing that really is keeping this town going, or the thing that kind of ties them all together, that gives them hope, that gives them joy, is hockey. Hockey is absolutely huge in Beartown. This book is about everything and everyone in this town. So lots of characters, which I am not always the biggest fan of. However, this book does it so well. We focus on probably 30 plus characters, I would say. It's about hockey. It's about sports, about how it can bring out the best and the worst in people, how it can become a very toxic place and give rise to toxic people. It's about sexism. It's about forgiveness. It's about love. It's about hate. It's about assault. It's just family and divorce and work and everything that you can fit in a book. That's what it's about. So we start out, we're introduced to the town, a lot of the characters. Peter, he's the head manager of the hockey club. We're introduced to the coaches. We're introduced to several of the players. Kevin is the star player, and he is like magic on the ice. There's no one that's as good as he is. He's gonna grow up and go to the NHL. And one day Kevin does something really awful to one of the other characters in the book, and the town very quickly chooses sides. And it will, I just can't talk. I don't want to give too much away. Hold on. Does the back give stuff away? No, it doesn't. So, okay, I don't want to say I was gonna tell you guys what happens, but on the back it does not say it, and I don't want to ruin it. I went into the book not really knowing anything, just knowing that it was about hockey in a town called Beartown, and the inciting incident that took place did catch me by surprise because, again, I was not expecting it to go that direction. But just the feels, man, like rage, empathy, hope, dread. You will feel the full scale of human emotions. Fredrik Backman, he writes such gray human characters. Like, these characters are put in really tough circumstances, and some of them do really terrible things, but then he shows like every side of them where it's like it's really difficult to hate. It's like, what's the saying about the best villains are the ones like not out there murdering puppies or something, but the ones where they'll show them helping like an old lady across the street. Everyone is so complex and so emotional. If you are looking for a series that will just take your heart and rip it out of your chest and stomp all over it and tear it to pieces, then this is for you. I did cry during the last book. Like the first two books, I was okay. There were a few times I got a little teary or I got like emotional. I had to pause and be like, whew, that was a great bit of writing. That made me feel some stuff. But the third book, the ending, no, there was nothing. Tears were shed. And I'm not ashamed of that because it was so good. People in this town are really desperate and do really bad things and make some really bad choices and are not always the smartest. But so many of them just are really trying really hard. It shows all their horribleness, all their vulnerability. He does a really good job of writing female characters. This centers on a male hockey club, and you might imagine then that it's probably not going to be the best environment, like the locker room and stuff like that. And he just takes you into the differences that are expected between the men and the women, and the things that the women have to put up with that the men don't, and how society tolerates. There was one quote in the book, he used it several times, and it's just like, society isn't always what we do, it's what we tolerate. And he proves that over and over. The writing is really simplistic, very easy to get through, but again, it's very character driven, which I personally really enjoy. It's not for everyone. I have heard a few people say that they're not fond of, like, so he does these little sentence toppers. It's like what I call them. Like at the end of a chapter, he will add just like a tiny little sentence to really push a point home and like really make sure you understand it. And some people think that that's really cheesy. It works for me. It works great for me. It's like, it would be cheesy if he didn't spend so much time getting you so emotionally invested in what the characters are feeling. If he didn't do that so well, then I would agree. But no, everything he did worked for me. He also likes to play games with you, which, oh, Fredrik Backman, you make me mad. He'll just do something like, he'll list like 3 characters. He's like, these 3 boys are playing on the ice. And it's like major characters. He's like, and then he'll end the chapter with like, 1 will be dead in a year. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? And then sometimes he'll do that and he'll trick you. He'll write a chapter and it all seems like it's leading to this one character, and then it's like, surprise, no, it's not. Tricky author. I would 100% recommend you checking out this series, which I don't always do. I don't do that often because writing and reading is so subjective, and I usually will say, like, if I don't like this book, don't let me you know, don't let me stop you from trying to read it. Or if I really like it, that doesn't mean you're going to. You will like this series. It's so good. I need to read more Frederick Bachman novels now, but I don't know if, I feel like he can't top that one, honestly. I finished that book and I'm just like, I'm emotionally devastated. I need to like take a nap or something. I don't know. Anyway, guys, enough of me going on and on and on. I could talk about that series, clearly, you guys can tell, for like hours if you will let me. So I'm going to control myself. I'm going to stop here. Those are the books that I read in winter. I will have my 2024 best and worst. I think we know which ones might be on the best list. I'll have that up soon. But if I don't have it up before Christmas, then Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you guys have a fantastic holiday. So I will see you guys next time. Bye.